Hey guys, Wolf Johnson here, laying on the floor. Sometimes I do that. Just kick back and disconnect from the Matrix, or the rules of the Matrix, the rules that may suggest that as a bipedal entity, you should be on your feet, or you should lay in a bed or on some sort of mat, padding, but I don't know. There's something about the floor that just brings me back to zero. Now, I don't know exactly what it is. It sort of feels like I'm forcing a perspective on my consciousness, the divine self. Maybe I'm humbling myself a little bit. I don't know. There's nothing wrong with laying on the floor. Maybe I'm just making up all this mumbo jumbo. Maybe I don't really know anything. All I know is it feels kind of nice. Physically, I wouldn't say it's comfortable, but it's just a nice break from pattern. A nice break from looking for comfort. To just lay here. You know what I mean? I was driving today and this song Mayonnaise by the Smashing Pumpkins came on. That's off the album Siamese Dream. I think it's from '94. That song was released well before my time. I mean, I was alive, but I was a little kid. I wasn't listening to music at that time. I think at that time I was probably watching WWF or Power Rangers or something to that effect. Some kind of simulated violence. Larger than life characters. I didn't quite have a grasp on feelings and things. And I don't know how old Billy Corgan was when he wrote that song, or whoever wrote that song, the Smashing Pumpkins, whatever combination that was, but I don't know how old he was, but I know when I was 19, 20, that song tied itself very deeply into some significant memories. I anchored onto that song. For some reason, it just brought me peace. Made me feel a little bit sad. I think it's because of the Smashing Pumpkins that I was able to find any level of comfort in sadness that now I make a point to hang on to. Not to become dependent or anything, not to get energy from it, but just to experience it as it comes. Sadness is an event, like a weather system. And how often do you get that perfect summer rain, clear skies, but somehow there's a downpour? And maybe it's been a little bit rainier this year than I'm used to, but I know one day I'll look back upon these feelings and maybe finally, at some point, come to appreciate the auxiliary things, the things surrounding the sadness that when you're in it, it just becomes difficult to see anything beyond. So the Smashing Pumpkins, as it came on today, brought me back to a time in my early 20s or late teens. It's kind of all blurred together. that had a significant heartache, some breakups. In fact, I would say the breakup of the one of the longest relationships I've had, I was surprised that I got over the first little hump of that deep sort of sadness, that change, that severance of a limb of your person. I got over that, at least from what I could perceive, in 2 weeks. And that was with a strict regiment of the Smashing Pumpkins catalog. And at the time it was Gish, Siamese Dream, Adore, and Machina. Machina is fantastic, but I would just listen to those full albums in order, on loop. And this wasn't a playlist, this was the CDs. I'd be driving in my car, I was always in my car, trying to clear my head, trying to escape. But I couldn't escape myself. And that was around this time of year, the autumn, just the turn of the season when things started to get a little cooler and the leaves started to change. Everything was changing. It was all serendipitous, and I think that opened up my senses to that kind of change of this season so deeply that every time autumn rolls around every year, I am sort of brought back to that song, Mayonnaise by the Smashing Pumpkins. The reason I bring this up is that song came on today, just on a shuffle, this time on a playlist. And it's the turn of the season. But it just occurred to me, like, that song came out well before my time. I never knew Billy Corgan. I never really did much deep digging on him or whatnot, not outside of his, I guess, production notes and things like that. The music is interesting, his artistry is interesting to me, but he as a person, never really looked into his life or where he was coming from when he wrote that song. And a couple things I thought about that. One, isn't it amazing that someone from another time, another place in the world, completely different life experience could produce something that years later would move me so, would carry me through tough times, give me something to anchor on. It made me think about humanity, like the magic of humanity, the magic of expression, the significance of all of it. I just don't think anything is trivial, any sort of expression. Even some goofy gibberish bullshit, you know. Everything is a brush stroke. Everything is part of a very brief painting in somebody's experience for that moment in time. And we all remember some moment that stands out to us. The most minute details, the foreground, the background, the smell, the sounds, the rate of our heartbeat, what we were feeling, what they meant, people. See, all of these things in the physical realm, they go away. But those moments last for eternity in our psyche. And sometimes when we forget, we can still feel. Our souls don't forget. And sometimes as a song or expression, I'd like to really reiterate, expression of any kind can be the thread that weaves that very painting, that moment into our soul. Another thing I thought I wanted to mention is that I think because of these things, the impact that expressions have, the unique impact it has, no matter how small that expression, the ripple effect that it causes, how that ripple, the further away from the source it gets, changes, maybe becomes smaller, quieter. But the importance of interpretation. See, I don't want to chase the finite meanings of things. I don't need to know what an artist was attempting to say. When I experience their work, when I find their fingerprints, because I think the magic of art is in the space of interpretation. It's that possibility for interpretation that makes it all limitless. Too many boxes, man. Too many guidelines. Too many definitions. I feel like we have been oppressed by language and meanings. I understand we need things like some general understanding of the world to progress, but when it comes down to communication, I don't know that a dictionary is all that important unless you're trying to write something formal to a formal party. But I don't need language to know somebody's hurting, to know somebody's happy. I need language to identify the feeling of a dance, experience the anger of a riff or theory of a drum roll. You know what I mean?